the first one that was intercepted went, from 28,000 feet-ish, between 25 and 30,000 feet down to below sea level. I mean, it didn't stop at the ocean and just kept going.
Wow. Yeah. So this is definitely some kind of exotic phenomenon. You guys might have seen and encountered other vessels and things like that, but this is a lot different.
I'll make it pretty clear. It was definitely a very advanced technology. It definitely wasn't affected by inertia. It definitely ran on a set of physics that is beyond what we have or what we understand right now.
Greetings and welcome to the Vortex. I'm your host, Daniel Allen Jones, and I'm joined here by Gary Voorhis. Gary, an honor to be here with you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So you've experienced something that has just recently surfaced in the public domain in regard to the UFO phenomenon. This is something that took place for you guys about 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And the public is just now finding out about this UFO that we're calling the Tic Tac. So what was your time like on the USS Princeton?
Well, probably pretty eventful since we went through 2 wars on that ship. So I did my tour during Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom on that ship, and we launched a lot of Tomahawk missiles. So I mean, it's not like we weren't used to unusual situations because of just in the last 20 years the norm is we're not shooting missiles.
Yeah.
So but other than that, until this event happened, generally most things were, just make sure the computers are running, make sure data recording's running, and go smoke.
Yeah. So just pretty much regular things that you guys, the crew, keep up with until you have like an encounter, which might set everyone a little bit on edge if it's a threatening, hostile situation. Which, like you said, being in war, you encounter on from time to time.
Well, us being so far away from our targets, we didn't really run into too much stuff. And I mean, any small ships that would come up to us would generally, not keep continuing coming towards us because, we're going to light them up. But so we never really had any problems with that. So other than, shipboard injuries, man overboards, a helicopter that went down, and all those things. Those were the only events where people died on our ships. We never had any casualties due to the war itself. So the only PTSD that most people on my ship got before this encounter would have been just the stresses of living that type of lifestyle.
Sure.
So.
And you guys were out there for long periods of time.
Yeah, we were one of the few ships that had a what they call we had a deployment with 2 beer days, and what that means is that we went 45 days at sea.
Oh wow!
To give you an idea, when I told my grandfather that I went 45, I had 2 beer days on my last deployment. He looked at me funny because he was in for 32 years and he only had 1.
Oh wow!
And he was at sea his entire career. So it was a long deployment. It was a hard deployment, especially when we were because we were extended by 2 months. So we did a 10-month deployment. And when we got back, they turned around and said, you guys are going back out early. And that's when we started doing these CanXs and then workups and, getting the ship ready to go back out.
Leading up to November of 2004, everything that you guys experienced was pretty conventional, nothing too out of the ordinary other than, like you said, the occasional incident where someone might be injured or something.
We had a suicide on board, or somebody literally jumped over in the middle of the night.
Wow.
So I mean, we didn't know he was gone until the mid-watch when he was supposed to be on watch. And then we had another guy fall over the side. And we didn't recover either one because they were at night. And so, other than those events, we really didn't have a whole lot going on. We only had a complement of about 480 plus people or so, under 500. So we're ships what they call a small boy. It's a small ship.
A lot smaller than the carriers, which have like
5,000 plus people. Once you got the air deck on, you got an easy 5,000 people. It's a small city.
Wow.
Yeah. I got lost on the carrier for like 2 or 3 hours couldn't find my way.
Wow. I mean, it seems like a large scale craft to be able to be, out there at sea for long periods of time. You have to have enough people to man and
yeah. There's a lot going on there.
So when we're talking about the Tic Tac UFO event, this is something that you witnessed firsthand, and you got to really see through your experience. And you worked with the Aegis, is that correct?
Yeah, the Aegis combat systems.
And you got familiar with a number of different conventional aviation technologies that you would have been able to identify like right away. And then this is something that stood out to you.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm listening to what they're looking at. I can look at a track and tell you generally what it is, but it's got symbology to tell me what it is. An unknown literally just has no symbology, so it's not hard to figure out that it's an unknown track. But I didn't need to, because there's people there talking about it. There's people there looking at it and explaining what's going on, and they're talking back and forth. Because I was in control of all the, making sure that all the consoles were working, all the computer systems are up and running for the Aegis system, so it's Spy 1 Bravo radar, the ORT system, and anything that runs through our mainframes. So all the weapon systems on board generally run through our mainframes, or is located in my computer room that I was responsible for, even including the 5-inch 54s, which are the big cannons on the forward and aft of our ship. The only thing that we don't have in there is CWIS, because they have that all in one little tiny space on I think it's like an E04, 05 deck. But it has to be autonomous, because it's a different type of system. It's our last line of defense.
Yeah. So when this happened, did you guys prepare as if this was a drill, or did you feel like this was another threat that you have to get ready for?
It was never perceived as a threat. They were just perceived as unknown targets, non-hostile, because they weren't making any aggressive moves or anything like that. They were just there. And we tracked them for a number of days before. It was like 2 days, and then we took our systems down because we thought we were getting clutter. Clutter would be where the radar is not calibrated properly and is either being oversensitive to just nothing, or it's kind of like when you turn up the resolution too high and it just starts breaking up.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing would happen with a radar system, but it's kind of that super simple version of what's happening. But
yeah.
So they took down the whole system. They recalibrated. We brought it back up, applied everything we need to apply on the computer to get it to run as sharp and as smooth as possible. And when we brought it back up, the tracks were just there, but we could see them even better. Still
there. So you restarted all the systems and everything to just see if that was an effect of something going on with that, and then you turn it back on and they're all still present. And you mentioned
it's a process to do that. They have to take down all the equipment. They have to pull modules. They have to recalibrate a lot of equipment. And you basically kind of think of it as doing a really complicated tune-up on a car.
Yeah.
So it's involved, and it takes almost a full day to do.
Oh, so, wow.
It's not something that we're just flipping a switch and resetting it. Yeah, go ahead and reset Spy. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So and those Spy guys, they're busting their ass to get it back up as quick as possible, because that's our primary radar. So
yeah. So when we're talking about the Tic Tac UFO, this is almost interpreted as like a singular type of event, like there was just this one, but in reality there were several that were
we were tracking between 3. It was kind of in groups of 3, 5, and 10-ish or so.
Wow.
Kind of varying from time to time, but generally that's kind of the way it was. At least from because me being able to pop in and out of combat every once in a while. Sometimes there was only 3, sometimes there was 5. I never really saw the really big groups myself, but with him being running the running the air side, he's going to be able to, he's going to be up there way more than I am. So
yeah,
I can only come up with so many excuses to be in there until I got to hide, and that's actually, ironically, that's actually how I found out about the sonar hits on the target, is because I was hiding over.
And this is underwater.
Yeah.
So they weren't just up there in the sky. We have things going in the water too.
The first one that was intercepted went, from 28,000 feet-ish, between 25 and 30,000 feet down to below sea level. I mean, it didn't stop at the ocean. It just kept going.
Wow. Yeah. So this is definitely some kind of exotic phenomenon. You guys might have seen and encountered other vessels and things like that, but this is a lot different.
I'll make it pretty clear. It was definitely a very advanced technology. It definitely wasn't affected by inertia. It definitely ran on a set of physics that is beyond what we have or what we understand right now. At least as a commercial engineering, commercial physics that we are being taught as a general public.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, if it's some type of skunk works, project that we don't know about, or some type of S2 or whatever the hell they call that division, a type of secret project or reverse engineering technology.
Yeah.
Or, I've had a lot of people keep asking me, well, what do you think it was? Because, I know what they want. They want me to confirm what they think it is.
Sure.
But the problem with that is in my mind, it could be one of several different possibilities that I don't know what X is, so I can't tell you which path that it should be. So I mean, if it's I'll give you an example. Say, if it is our tech, then the question is did we develop this over time and they've just been cartelling technology, or are they reverse engineering a technology, and where did they get that technology? So I mean, that poses its own set of questions.
Yeah.
But now, if it's not the government and it's some type of other thing, well, what is it? Is it there's I'm not going to go into all that, but I mean that's when it starts getting a little sci-fi, and
sure,
fantasy. So,
and while people like those ideas, those concepts are seen.
And believe me, I love me some Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. I love all science fiction, but I can't subscribe to saying that. It was science fiction enough just to see these things and know that they exist.
Yeah, and being there firsthand. You've had an experience that a lot of people, not only that some wish they could have, but you've seen something that other people can't say that you didn't. And while some people might say, "Oh, they're just they've been out at sea too long" or something, it's like, well,
they can say what they want. I mean, honestly, it's like one of my shipmates that wanted to come out. He was worried that people think he's nuts and stuff like that, and then I go, well. When it comes down to it, we got something to say. This event did happen. These Tic Tacs were real. These were unknown aircraft we tracked. They did break the laws of physics. All four of us aren't crazy. I've profited nothing from any of this.
Yeah.
The what little money I did get for coming to this convention, I forfeited just so my wife could come. I'm getting nothing to come here and talk.
Yeah, and that's another thing is I think it helps build a lot of integrity for you guys that you haven't like concocted this big, fancy story that's really embellished and that all you guys planned out ahead of time. You guys were just spontaneously there on stage sharing each vantage point that you had.
And I'll be honest with you, even when we were up there, we were still remembering stuff. When we get together and we start talking, we forget about stuff. We were just talking down there, and he was trying to remember, or Jason was trying to remember where my computer room was, because it's been that long.
Yeah.
I had to say, well, dude, you literally Cess right across from my computer room. And that's where he saw the video.
So, and he made his way in there because he had to get stuff in.
Because that area is so off limits, except for just the technicians that work in there. So the fire controlman with equipment in there, or because they have other computer systems in there too for like Mark 86. That's the cannons, and you've got also the Tomahawks. They have their computer system in there too. So only the FCs or the fire controlman, which is an array that works with weapon systems. Only those guys are allowed into that room.
Yeah.
So unless you have something in there, you don't have need to know to be in that room. Only the XO and the captain can just walk in there.
And I would imagine the same goes for whenever you guys had this encounter. It wasn't just announced that there's UFOs. Everyone,
No, it was never like that. It was like you never really said UFOs in the context of like, hey, we're tracking aliens.
Yeah, sure.
What it would be is like, it's like when I first got the call that they were going to take down Spy, I was like, aren't we about to run a scenario? Why the hell are you taking Spy down? And they're like, well, we got a bunch of clutter that we got to clear, and I'm like, all right, and that's kind of how it goes, and then after that, it's like, once I get everything set up to reload, after they take everything down, I go up there and I help them with their work, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? He goes, we got all these tracks, and we think there's just something wrong with it, so we're going to clean everything up, and it'll be good, it'll be fine, and we weren't even really worried about it. It's like, all right, whatever, and then I went and smoked.
Yeah.
And then the next day when we brought it all back up, and I'm sitting down in Computer Central, and I still don't know anything's going on yet, and then we've got intercoms to go between the different stations because we have to keep the computer room manned at all times in case we need to reload a computer or we need to reload a patch for a specific scenario or something like that. So I'm literally sitting in a hammock, just I'm 30 on, 4 off at this point. So I mean, we're just trying not to fall asleep,
Yeah.
And I get over the one, over the radio. It's like, hey, or the intercom, and it's like, hey, reload, this or this and this. I'm like, yeah, no problem, just reload that. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing now? He goes, well, we still have those tracks, so we, I'm like, oh, okay, and I didn't think anything of it, and then I was like, all right, well, the only other guy that could relieve me in there, he came in to relieve me, and so I went out to go smoke, and one of the spy guys is out there, and he's chain smoking. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? I go, it's been that kind of day, huh? He goes, those tracks, all that clutter, they're unknown.
Wow.
They're all unknown.
Yeah. So it seemed like having restarted the system, which doesn't just happen with like a flip of the switch, it takes a while, they were there the whole time.
Yeah. So he's telling me that they got these unknown tracks. They don't know what they are. They're just sitting up there floating at 100 knots, and I'm like, well, and I always remember this because like, what are they made of, balsa wood? How the hell are they sitting up there at 100 knots? Almost everything I know would fall out of the sky if it was running 100 knots. Like, what is it, like a bunch of paragliders? Or I mean,
yeah.
What the hell? And he goes, yeah, we don't know. And so this went on for days. I just kept popping into combat. I'm like, hey, are they still there? Yeah, they're still here, man. We're just watching them. And nobody's chilling. He's freaking out about it. We're all talking about it, but
so it's pretty well known around the crew.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, as Small Boy, you hear 400 something people, but really, it's a small community when there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we got, I think it's 580 feet one way and then 200 something feet sideways, and that's it, and then you can go up and down. And, we used to call it cell block 59,
Oh, yeah.
And when you're out to sea, that's it. You don't have anywhere to go, so you run into all kinds of people. Yeah, so you end up knowing everybody by the time deployment's over.
Yeah.
It's not like the carrier where literally you can go 2 deployments and not know that somebody served with you.
Sure.
I mean,
so pretty well.
Well, PJ, I mean, he's had to go through his his cruise book just to find people because he didn't know who the heck they were.
Yeah, because they had a lot more over the limits.
Yeah, you can go an entire deployment on a carrier without ever knowing anybody on there, except for the small amount of people that you interface with every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're on a small boy like my ship. You end up knowing everybody by the time you're done.
So what was the impression like for you and the rest of the people you interacted with over the duration of this encounter when you realized that they were unknown?
Well, when we all realized that they were unknown, it's like we were kind of just like the anticipation, it was kind of just building day by day because we're just like, after about the 3rd day, we're like, why aren't they checking this shit out? Why aren't they taking us serious? Of course, we're all just dumb grunts. We're all just the low ranks and stuff like that. So, of course, we know better than everybody above us. So, we're all just bitching on the smoke deck about it and, saying how incompetent everybody is, and same thing that you do in a civilian world, but to our behind their backs because you don't say it to their faces. But so then you go back in, and then all of a sudden I hear they're going to do an intercept
Wow.
And then so I listened to that on the talk back, and then I hear that well, they're sending up one with a pod, you know, which basically means they're sending one up with a camera.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a popular misconception that these airplanes were completely defenseless. They didn't have missiles, but they still had bullets.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have still engaged these crafts if they ever became hostile.
Yeah, but they weren't told to unless.
Well, in the service, you can fire if you've been fired upon, and that's the only way you can be. You know, unless it's the ship's in danger, you generally, you know, it's a little bit different in that situation. Like if they were threatening the ships.
Yeah.
So if he was threatening each individual plane, then each individual plane could choose whether to engage or not in an emergency situation. But for the most part, they have to be told to engage.
Yeah.
And then from there, you make the choice. Because they don't really make you feel like you got a choice when you need to pull the trigger, but you really do. You can just choose not to, and then what they do is they just kind of. You won't get reprimanded, but you will get moved. You'll probably get moved to a different rate, or that's a non-combat rate.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean, so yeah, they just don't want to deal with you because if you can't do your job, you can't do your job.
Sure, but this wasn't called for in this particular situation.
In this situation, there was never any hostile intention from any of these things. I mean, they were never making any hostile moves. So we'd go after them, they'd move back. You know, so it was more of they were trying to avoid us, kind of like. You know, it's like you ever seen some of these like parrot drones and stuff that do the you can set them for like a 2-foot radius of you, and then you know have them move around, and then you move forward, they move forward, and they're recording you and stuff like that. That'd be kind of like what I would kind of attribute it to. Those are kind of the attributes these things had. You know, so they had a starting place, just like you would have with one of those drones, and then you know as we went towards them, they moved. You know, and then as we went down towards it came back up and it went. You know, back up to where it was, you know, and then they'd move around and stuff like that, but they never posed any like threat to the actual ships themselves. They never became hostile, or there was no beam weapons or energy pulses or stuff like that. It was just these crafts sitting out there, just floating there, And then when they did move, they'd move so fast. You'd be looking at it through the big eyes, and it's just a little bright ball of something 30 miles away, and then it's like it'd be gone, but then you'd realize that it had been gone. It was moved so fast that it took a second for your eyes to realize it was gone. You were seeing a streak, but the streak was just your eyes, your photoreceptors, not being able to keep up with how fast it moved.
So right there, it tells us that this was some kind of unconventional ability that we don't possess, in the public domain.
And they did do maneuvers like they weren't affected by inertia in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Wow.
They didn't accelerate. They moved at a certain speed. Period. It wasn't like where you get in your car and you're at a stoplight and you hit the gas and you start ramping up and you go. It was just I'm going from point A to point B at this speed. They just started at that speed and ended at that speed.
Yeah, it wasn't really like ballistic linear propulsion like we usually have in other aviation technology.
Yeah, so it didn't have rockets.
Yeah, so something was going on to be able to make these things move around. Now, what has it been like? And again, this is 15 years ago. So did you ever share this around with friends or family? And if so, what was that like?
If somebody was close enough to me, I might tell them in confidence, like when, if we're bullshitting about, just kind of weird stuff or stuff like that, and, I think somebody might, you need a good story, here's a good story, man. I'll tell you something that happened to me on the coast of San Diego. And they're like, no way, dude. It's like, hey, I don't care if you believe me or not.
Yeah.
And then they tend to kind of half believe you or something like that, but it's and then you forget about it the next day. Or if I got drunk with a bunch of my buddies, it's like, hey, I've seen the fucking flying saucer,
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. Those stories tend to be a little bit more belligerent, though.
Sure. Well, and again, now that this has all come out, have you ever gotten back with any of those people or anyone that you've talked to and been like, here's some validation.
No, I don't really care.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I got excited to show it to my wife, because my wife already believed me, but my wife with UFOs and stuff like that, she's like, she's a very intelligent woman. A woman that, I was smart. I married a woman that was smarter than me.
Yeah.
So, but she's like, have they landed? Are they a part of everyday life? And I go, well, no. And she goes, then I'll be honest, I don't need to know anything about them.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people think is really intangible and may not really affect our day-to-day life like that.
And and that's fine, because you got to remember, it's like that's why our community that is into UFOs, and I'm not even into it like some of you guys are. I mean, like Kavat and stuff like that. I didn't even know who that dude was. I don't know who. I knew what MUFON was, and the big, the people that have the. Are on mainstream cable and
sure, yeah.
And I've read stories about World War II. I've read stories. I've done history searches and read stories and seen documentaries on UFOs and stuff like that. So I know about Foo Fighters during the Vietnam era, and I know generally about a general history of UFOs. But some of the guys like at this convention, they go way beyond where I'm probably ever going to be, because they'll cite the the Article 2 of the subsection of the the redacted paperwork that we found 6 months ago on some hard drive in some back site of a porn site, and it's like wow, you guys are
Yeah.
Dude, wow.
Really? I mean, it's definitely a rabbit hole. You can always go deeper and deeper, and there's always different layers.
That's just it. It's kind of like when you go deep like that into this type of subject, it's kind of like going too deep into philosophy. If you go too deep into philosophy, you can lose yourself, because there's too many unknowns, and if you just don't accept reality for what it is right now, how are you going to be able to accept it when it's different?
Yeah, and I think it's important to be grounded, to be level-headed. Yeah. You can entertain any possibilities and be open to different points of view. You don't always have to agree with them, but you can say, okay, I see, that you can look at that from different things.
Frankly, I don't agree with 90% of the people here, but it doesn't mean that I can't, hear them out and listen to what they're saying and just kind of, whether I dismiss it or not as something I don't want to believe, that's fine, but I don't have to be an asshole.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good, respectable trait that allows us to be more considerate and think about the possibility that someone's point of view, maybe...
Well, I always look at it this way. The crazier the story I hear, usually the crazier the person. But then again, if they really did go through something like that, like for real, it might make them a little loopy.
Yeah, possibly so.
So I take it with a grain of salt when people tell me about stuff, especially if they're a little off. If they're a little off, that actually probably lends to their credibility.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we see from time to time with those who've had strange encounters or things like that. So as a sort of a sign-off in closing, what would you say to those who find that a lot of this UFO type stuff is all imaginary, is all nonsense, and so having your experience, what would you say to people that think that?
With the experience that we had, that I can personally say without a shadow of a doubt, there is a level of technology on this planet that is far beyond what we currently use commercially right now. So that is an absolute fact in my mind. So it's not a matter of whether it's true or not, for me at least, and to anybody else that decides that they actually want to believe us, and we just want to get it out to our shipmates and the people that may see this podcast. I might have one of my old geeky shipmates that happens to be a subscriber to you and says, hey, I saw you on this guy, I love this guy, and I saw you on his podcast, and hey, what's going on? Hey, how can I help? Hey, I thought I was going nuts, or something like that. So I'm mostly just doing it for my other shipmates, and I don't really care who believes me or not.
Yeah.
And anybody that's got a skeptic, and you got a good question, if I know the answer, or if obviously if you ask me an answer that would be it would be classified in any situation, don't ask me that question because I can't tell it to you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the true range of the radar. I can't tell you the true capabilities of the systems. I can tell you what they generally do.
Yeah. Well, I think defense secrecy is important as much as civilians want to know everything. It's like you have to realize that those things are important.
You got to be happy with the meat and potatoes. You don't necessarily need the trimmings. So, I just want to tell everybody, if you had these situations, and hopefully you're not a schizophrenic, you can come out to people, you can, especially if you're any of my shipmates or you're any of the Nimitz shipmates, or honestly, if you're any military personnel that has had some type of encounter like this, I'm going to leave my email with this gentleman, and you can contact me at any time. I can get you in contact with Kevin Day, anybody who you want to talk to. If you don't want to talk to me, I'll be honest. I'm a little bit more pragmatic about everything. I'm not really, I'm not really into any spiritual phenomenon or anything like that. Do I think stuff like that could happen? Yeah, sure. But it's not tangible for me. I can't prove it or disprove it. So,
sure. Yeah.
It's like my belief in Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm a devout Christian. Can I prove Jesus was real? No, I wasn't there. I just choose to believe it was, and so it's whether that turns you off or not, I don't care either. But
well, I mean, that's just something that you feel connected with, and that's perfectly valid.
So it's just to me, my shipmates, my fellow military personnel, if these things have happened to you, you do need somebody to talk to. Please reach out. Get a hold of us. We will do our best to try to validate what's happened to you. And if we can, at least you got somebody that you can talk to,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, it allows for people to have a supportive, secure network that they're not going to be ridiculed, because there's such a ridicule factor in all of this.
No. If you're prior military, I'm going to ridicule you. But, that's part of the game, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, Gary, it's been an honor to be able to have you here. Thanks for sharing about your Tic Tac UFO encounter. I think it's really changing the scope of what's going on in the public eye, and hopefully we'll have others that'll come forward with a bit more information to corroborate and reassure that people aren't going crazy, that this is a real phenomenon and there is a lot more to it. So appreciate you taking the time to come and share with us.
All right, no problem, man. Take it easy.
All right, thanks.
If you liked this video, be sure to check out our other content and get connected on our page and social media sites. Every day, new discoveries are being made all across the world and beyond, so let's work together to find out what's next. And remember, we won't know if we don't go. I'll see you in the Vortex.